Reformed thinking. Welcome back to the deep dive. We have something really special planned for today, a proper deep dive into one of the great Psalms. We're focusing entirely on Psalm 24.
A fantastic choice.
And our guide for this is going to be Charles Spurgeon. We're relying almost completely on his commentary in the Treasury of David.
Which is just an incredible resource.
Yeah.
Spurgeon has this way of taking a text you think you know and just opening it up. And he calls the psalm the Song of the Ascension.
That's a great title for it.
It is because he sees the earthly event behind it as a pointer to something much, much bigger.
And that structure is really helpful for getting a handle on it. Spurgeon breaks it down into 3 clear movements, which is how we'll approach it.
Yes, he does. First, you get this huge foundational claim about God's universal rule, his absolute sovereignty. That's verses 1 and 2.
Okay.
Then the psalm pivots and asks, well, who can actually approach this God? It defines the character of the faithful, a true Israel. That takes us through verse 6.
And that sets up the finale.
It does. The third part is this glorious, soaring climax that shows the fulfillment of it all. The ascent of the King of Glory, Jesus Christ, who opens the way for his people.
So before we jump into verse 1, what's the context here? What was happening when David wrote this?
Well, the most likely occasion is a moment of huge national celebration. David is bringing the Ark of the Covenant up to Mount Zion.
From the house of Obed-Edom.
Right. So you have this grand procession, a physical climb up a hill, and a real sense of spiritual elevation for the whole nation.
But David isn't just, writing about moving a decorated box up a hill.
Not at all. As a prophet, his eyes are looking way beyond that. The Ark's journey is what we'd call a type. It's a signpost pointing to the real, the ultimate ascension.
The ascension of Jesus Christ into heaven.
That's it. That prophetic layer is what gives this psalm so much weight for us. It's really the story of the king's journey home.
All right, let's start where he starts, with this huge sweeping claim in verse 1. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world, and they that dwell therein.
It's just so absolute, isn't it? There's no preamble. It's a declaration of total ownership.
And Spurgeon immediately jumps on the implications of this, especially for the audience in Jesus' day.
He does. He sees this verse as a sharp rebuke to the kind of the narrow thinking about God that had really taken hold among the Jews by the 1st century.
It seems hard to believe they would have missed that point, though. I mean, they were singing this song. How could they sing this and still be so exclusive?
That's a great question that gets to the heart of the issue. They preserved the text, but they had completely narrowed its application.
So they knew the words.
They knew the words, but in their minds it meant the Holy Land is God's and the descendants of Abraham are his only people. Everything outside of that was, secondary at best.
And Spurgeon is saying that David, centuries before, was writing something that completely contradicts that. He's claiming the whole world's for Jehovah.
The whole round world. He's making it clear that Jehovah is not some local tribal deity. He's the God of all creation.
It really is amazing, the human ability to hold 2 contradictory ideas at once. To sing the world and they that dwell therein, and then have this intense bigotry against Gentiles.
Well, look at the reaction Jesus got. Spurgeon points this out. Think of the fury when Jesus mentioned that Elijah wasn't sent to a Jewish widow, but to the widow of Sarepta.
In Sidon, a foreign land.
Or that Elisha healed Naaman the Syrian, not one of the many lepers in Israel. The moment you suggest God's grace extends beyond their borders, the outrage is immediate.
And you see the same thing with the Apostle Paul. He can get a hearing right up until he says the word Gentiles.
And then the riot starts. It's that deeply ingrained. But Spurgeon uses that historical point to make a very direct application for his day and for ours.
Which is?
That this verse completely refutes any kind of human hierarchy or exclusivism today. He asks, who are you to dismiss certain races as lesser? Who are you to treat another human as just, quote, a piece of merchandise?
He's applying it directly to the social sins of his own time.
Oh, absolutely. He specifically mentions the Negro and other despised races, saying if a man is a man, he belongs to the Lord. End of story.
It's a total theological takedown of nationalism, of racism, of any idea that one group is inherently better than another.
The only thing that sets anyone apart is the free gift of grace in Christ. Apart from that, God's claim is universal, which means our respect must be universal. The poorest person, the most overlooked individual.
They are a dweller in the world.
And therefore they belong to Jehovah. We don't get to draw lines on God's map.
So let's dig into that phrase, the fullness thereof. God owns the earth and its fullness. What does that word carry beyond just, everything in it?
Spurgeon breaks it down into 4 dimensions, showing how the world is just constantly full of God's presence and his provision.
Okay.
First, he says there's the fullness of its harvests. The earth isn't just a dead rock. It's constantly producing grain, fruit, all the life that sustains us. It's full of his blessing.
That makes sense. What's the second one?
The fullness of its wealth. And not just gold and silver. Think of the coal in the ground, the timber in the forest, all the raw materials. He made them and he put them there. They're his.
Right.
Third is the fullness of life. I mean, just the incredible variety of living things, from humanity all the way down to the smallest insect. The world is teeming with life because he made it that way and he keeps it that way.
On day 4th.
The fullness of worship. The whole creation is designed to give praise back to its creator. Even where people don't worship him, the heavens are still declaring his glory. The world is just full of him.
So this all leads back to our place in this world that he owns so completely. What is our status?
Well, according to David, we are tenants. And not even secure tenants. We're tenants at will.
A leaseholder on precarious tenure, I think Spurgeon calls it.
That's the phrase. We can be evicted at any moment. We draw maps and create kingdoms and act like we own the place.
With our mimic kings and autocrats.
Yes. But our title deeds, Spurgeon says, are nothing more than the title deeds of worms of the gust.
That's such a great line. It just completely deflates all human pride and ambition about ownership. The legal documents, the land grants, all of it.
It's all temporary. The absolute permanent title, what lawyers call the fee simple, that belongs to God alone. We're here on his terms, by his permission.
That really should change how we think about stewardship, shouldn't it?
It has to. If you really believe that nothing you own is actually yours, it changes everything.
So verse 2 then gives the legal basis for this claim. It's the why. For he hath founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods.
It's just the title deed. Creation is the first reason he owns it all.
And Spurgeon says there's a second reason, a second seal on that deed.
Yes, and this is so critical for a Reformed understanding. The second seal is providence. It's not just that he made the world, it's that he is continuously upholding it.
He's not the absent landlord?
Exactly. He's not the deist clockmaker who wound it all up and walked away. His hand is on the foundations right now, this very second. That gives him a present active claim, not just a historical one.
But the way David describes those foundations is, well, it's startling. Founded it upon the seas, established it upon the floods. That sounds like the opposite of stability.
It's a shocking image, isn't it? And it's meant to be. It speaks to the hidden power of God. The dry land exists only because God is constantly holding back the waters.
The seas would swallow it up otherwise.
In a heartbeat. The very fact that we have dry land to stand on is a continuous miracle of his preserving power. So if the world feels unstable to us because of politics or economics,
David's reminding us that it's physically unstable, held in place only by God's decree.
which leads right into the spiritual application for us. If that's what the physical world is like, what about the things of the world that we trust in?
Our castles of confidence.
Our financial plans, our careers, our reputation, our earthly pleasures. David says you're building all of that on the sea. You're establishing it on the floods.
There's that common metaphor of building on sand, but Spurgeon takes it a step further.
He does. He says sand is bad enough, but at least sand stays put until the wind blows. The sea is never still. It's always moving, always ready to pull you under.
So what are some of those modern castles of confidence?
Oh, the belief that our technology will solve all our problems, the assumption that our political systems are permanent, the idea that our health is guaranteed or that our savings will last forever.
All built on the sea.
According to Spurgeon, they will all melt away like foam on the water. They have no lasting substance.
And that's where the contrast gives comfort to the believer.
Right. Because our hope isn't built on the sea. It's built on the rock of ages, on the unchanging promise of a faithful God. That's the real foundation.
So we've established God's total ownership in the shaky ground of this world. Now the psalm makes this crucial turn.
It does. It pivots from who God is to who can possibly get near him.
Verse 3 asks the question, who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? Or who shall stand in his holy place?
And you can feel the weight of that question. It's uphill work, as Spurgeon says, for a creature to get to the Creator. It's not just about climbing a mountain.
It's a question of moral altitude. Who can survive in the pure holiness of God's presence?
And the immediate unspoken answer is, on our own, nobody. None of us can stand there based on the law. Grace has to make a way.
So the people who can stand there, the true courtiers in God's palace, They're not defined by their family tree or their nationality.
No, not at all. They are defined by their character, and that character is itself a product of grace. This is the Bible's definition of the true Israel.
And verse 4 gives us 4 specific marks of that character. He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully. We should probably unpack each of those.
We should. Let's start with the first one. Clean hands.
This sounds very practical.
It is. It's about outward conduct. It's about practical holiness in your daily life, how you do business, how you treat your neighbor.
And Spurgeon has a very sharp warning here, doesn't he? For a particular kind of person.
He does. He's very concerned about people who use the doctrine of justification by faith as an excuse to be sloppy or even corrupt in their daily lives.
The person who talks a lot about their inward experience.
But their hands are dirty, their business dealings are shady, they're harsh, they're dishonest. David says, nope, you need practical purity.
I love his analogy here. He asks, what earthly king would let servants with filthy hands wait on him at his table?
It's a great image. If someone who is just ceremonially unclean couldn't even enter the physical temple, how can someone who is morally unclean think they can have fellowship with the holy God?
So if our hands are dirty, the only solution is to wash them in the blood of Christ.
That's the only cleansing that works. But that's just the first mark. Clean hands aren't enough on their own.
Right, because the next mark is a pure heart. This takes it from the outside to the inside.
To the very center of who we are. True religion, for Spurgeon, is always heart work. You can polish the outside all you want, but if the inside, your motives, your desires, are still filthy, then you are filthy.
The heart is the engine.
It's the engine. It's where everything starts. Spurgeon has this great line, dirt in the heart throws dust in the eyes.
Meaning you can't see God clearly if your heart is impure.
You can't see him at all. The promise is that the pure in heart will see God. If the intent is corrupt, the action, no matter how good it looks, is corrupt too.
Okay, so that brings us to the third mark. This one is about our desires, what we aim for. Avoiding vanity.
Who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity? This is about being delivered from a delight in the groveling toys of earth, as Spurgeon calls them.
What a phrase.
Isn't it? The worldling, the person without God, lifts up their soul in chasing after empty things. Fame, status, pleasure, money, things that have no eternal substance.
The modern versions of that would be things like chasing social media fame or being obsessed with status symbols.
All of it. All the temporary, perishable things we can pour our lives into. The saint, by contrast, lifts his soul up to God. He loves things that last.
And Spurgeon's warning here is pretty stark.
It is. He basically says, if the empty things of this world truly satisfy you, then that's your reward. That's all you're going to get. It's a real call to self-examination. What do you truly delight in?
And that leads to the fourth and final mark. Truthfulness, nor sworn deceitfully.
This is about integrity, your word, your promises. Spurgeon is absolute on this. Lying, deceit, and especially perjury, calling on God to witness a lie, are just totally incompatible with having a relationship with the God of truth.
He says God will have nothing to do with a person who practices deceit except to condemn them.
It's that serious. The Christian's word has to be their bond. There's no place for fraud or slander or convenient lies in the community of those who seek God's face.
Okay, so we have this incredibly high standard. Clean hands, pure heart, a soul set on eternal things, and total truthfulness. The obvious question is, who can do this? It seems impossible.
It is impossible, and that's the whole point. This isn't a checklist you can work through to earn your way into God's presence.
This is where we have to get the theology right to avoid falling into a crushing legalism.
We do, and the answer is right there in verse 5. These people, this true Israel, they are not saved by these works. These works are the evidence that they have already been saved by grace.
The holy uniform worn by the redeemed, not the price of admission.
A great way to put it. They ascend as receivers, not as givers. Look at the language in verse 5. He shall receive the blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation.
It's all received. It's a gift.
The blessing is received. The righteousness is received. It's an alien righteousness, one they didn't manufacture themselves. God gives it to them freely.
So even the holy life itself, the clean hands and the pure heart, that's part of the gift.
Yes. That's the beauty of it. God gives us the new heart that produces good works, and then he rewards us for the very works he produced in us. It's all grace, from start to finish. Grace doesn't cancel out the demand for holiness. Grace is what makes holiness possible.
Then verse 6 describes this group of people. This is the generation of them that seek him, that seek thy face, O Jacob.
They're called the regeneration. Not a generation defined by bloodline, but by a spiritual reality. They are seekers.
And that very act of seeking God is itself purifying.
It has to be. If you really want to see the face of a friend you love, you'll wipe the dust off the window. If you really want to see God's face, you will want to get rid of the sin that clouds your vision. The desire itself is evidence of a new nature at work.
They form a generation of their own, separate from the rest of mankind.
Despised by the world, maybe, but known and loved by God.
What about that last phrase, O Jacob? That seems a bit strange after making the point that it's not about ethnicity.
Commentators have a few thoughts on that. One is that God identifies so closely with his people that he takes their name. He's the God of Jacob.
Okay.
But the view Spurgeon prefers is that the seekers themselves are spiritually called Jacob. They are the true Israelites.
Like Jacob wrestling with the angel at Peniel.
Exactly. They are the ones who strive with God, who see his face, and who come away with a blessing that receive righteousness we just talked about. They are the true heirs.
It's another rebuke to those who are just relying on their physical heritage.
It is. It's a reminder that God is God of the whole earth, and he only admits holy people into his presence. And then you get that word, Selah.
Pause and think about that.
Pause and get ready, because the music is about to change. A much grander theme is coming.
And this is where the psalm just explodes into its climax. It shifts from the standard no one can meet to the one person who did.
To Jesus Christ. He is the one with perfectly clean hands and a perfectly pure heart. He never lifted his soul to vanity. He never spoke a deceitful word.
So he ascends to the holy hill, not by special permission, but by his own right.
By his own merit. And this is the core of the gospel for us. He didn't just go for himself. He went as our forerunner, as our representative.
He opens the way for us to follow.
By faith in him, his perfection covers our imperfection, and the Spirit begins to change us into his image, making us fit to follow where he has gone. He is the answer to the question from verse 3.
And the rest of the psalm is this incredible, dramatic anthem describing his ascension. It's like a script for a play.
It really is. You can picture the scene. Christ rising from the Mount of Olives, his work on earth finished, now being escorted by legions of angels up to the very gates of heaven.
And in verse 7, those gates are addressed directly. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in.
The gates of heaven itself are being told to get bigger, as if their eternal grandeur is somehow not enough for the king who is about to enter.
The angels are telling them to show some unusual loftiness for this prince.
A prince who is fresh from conquering sin, death, and the grave. Even the gates of pearl have to stretch themselves to honor him.
This leads to the challenge from inside the gates. A voice calls out, "Who is this King of glory?"
And that's not a question of ignorance, right? The angels inside know who he is. It's a rhetorical question, a prompt for the universe to declare his identity and celebrate his victory. It's an invitation to meditate on who this person is.
And the answer comes back from the angelic escort in a wave of triumphant sound. The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle.
This tells us why he has the right to enter. His glory is proven by the battles he has just won.
And these weren't just earthly battles.
No, these were the ultimate battles. He defeated the power of sin. He broke the chains of death. He triumphed over hell and Satan. He returns as a conquering hero.
A champion returning from single combat against the forces of darkness. His strength is proven on the cross and in the empty tomb.
And the anthem continues. In verse 9, the call is repeated, but with more intensity. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, even lift them up, you everlasting doors.
Spurgeon makes a great point about that repetition. He says it's not just for filler. In moments of high emotion, repetition adds force. It adds weight.
It absolutely does. The heralds are demanding attention a second time because this moment is so massive.
And the image of lifting up the gates, that had a real-world parallel, right?
It did. In the ancient East, for a really great king's return, they might pull the whole gate up like a portcullis, or even take the doors right off the hinges as a sign of total, wide-open welcome.
Which illustrates just how wide open Christ has made the way into heaven for us.
And Spurgeon adds that since he entered, those gates have never been shut. They remain open for even the weakest believer to follow him through.
So the challenge comes again in verse 10. Who is this King of glory? And this time the answer is even grander.
It's the final, ultimate title. The Lord of hosts, he is the King of glory.
The Lord of hosts. That's Jehovah Sebaoth. What exactly does that name convey?
It means Jehovah of armies. But it's more than just angels. It means God is in command of all the forces in the universe, physical, spiritual, everything, all marshaled in perfect order to do his will.
So when they call the ascending Jesus the Lord of hosts, they're not just calling him a victor,
They're calling him the supreme commander-in-chief of all reality.
the head and crown of the entire universe.
That's it. So the universal owner from part 1, who is also the perfectly holy man from part 2, now ascends as the conquering cosmic commander in part 3, opening the way for his people. The whole psalm comes together in him.
That's an amazing summary of the whole thing. We've seen God's universal sovereignty, the almost impossibly high standard of holiness he requires.
And then the triumphant work of Christ, who meets that standard for us and opens those everlasting doors. Without his ascension, the doors are locked to us forever.
So for anyone listening who hears that middle section about clean hands and a pure heart and just feels crushed by it.
Which is an appropriate first reaction.
Right. What's the remedy? Where do you go from there? Spurgeon is always clear on this.
The remedy is to look away from yourself and look to the King of Glory. Look to Christ.
That's the first step.
It's the only step that matters. Faith in him is the work of the Spirit that creates the new heart you need. It's when you wash in the fountain of his blood that the clean hands and pure heart begin to become your reality. They are the fruits of trusting him, not the cause.
As we wrap up, there's a really interesting thought from a commentator named John Keble that Spurgeon mentions. It's about the repetition of the call to the gates.
Yes, the idea that it might point to 2 different ascensions of Christ.
Tell us about that. What's the first ascension?
The first is the one we've been talking about, right after his resurrection. He ascends as the Lord mighty in battle. He's the lone champion, the victor in single combat, going to the Father's right hand to intercede for us.
Okay, so what would the second ascension be?
That would be after the final judgment. He won't ascend alone then. He will ascend as the Lord of hosts, the general leading his entire redeemed army with him.
The whole generation of them that seek him.
Every last one of them, with clean hands and pure hearts given to them by him, entering that heavenly city behind their king.
What a picture. The lone victor returning to plead for his people, contrasted with the great general returning with his infinite army.
It's a truly majestic thought to end on, to reflect on the final ultimate triumph of the King of Glory.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Psalm 24. Until next time.